Why are the religious so dumb? I mean, I know we ask that a lot, but what we've got today is going to be particularly painful to get through because, well, you're going to have to see that part for yourself. I don't even know where to go with this crap, so let's just get to it. I take no responsibility for this one at all. So today, we're going to take a look at a channel called 5-Minute Catholic Apologetics and Living. And I'll tell you right now, this is probably the last time we're ever going to look at this channel. In fact, it is so stupid that we're going to fast forward through a lot of this crap in hopes that we find anything rational to respond to. I'm pretty sure we're not going to because, well, you'll see for yourself. We're going to just prove him wrong a lot, and if that's what you're interested in, there's going to be plenty of that. So everybody strap in, because this one's going to be really rough.
Hello everybody, this is Gregory with 5-Minute Catholic Apologetics, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today we're going to talk about atheists and to give you some advice to atheists in your life. Now before we begin, let's start with a prayer.
Yeah, let's not. So right up front, let's recognize what he's doing wrong. Instead of telling your followers to ask atheists these questions, why don't you do it yourself and report back how it went? Because I'm pretty sure that won't go well, and I'm sure he knows that. It's why he's not putting himself on the line and isn't going to make a fool of himself in public. Well, I mean, he is doing it on YouTube, so there is that. But anyway, this is exactly what I always point out when these questions for atheist videos are being made on channels with an almost entirely religious viewership. You're going to get one kind of viewer to answer these questions, and that's the kind of viewer that you do not want. You're going to get YouTube atheists looking for content to attack, and we always know more about your religion than the religious do. So I don't think he's going to get what he's looking for, but I guess we'll see, right? Right after we fast forward through his stupid prayer.
Clearly, a lot of people have atheists, agnostics in their life, whether they be lapsed Catholics, lapsed Christians, Protestants, or perhaps their whole life they were that way because their parents felt in their injudicious wisdom not to raise their child in any faith and then let the child at 18 decide what faith they want to be. I mean, that's akin to like never taking a kid to a hospital or vaccinating or not even putting them in education until they're 18, then they can decide if they want to be educated. I mean, it's nonsensical to do that.
Except that is not at all what's going on. I'm sure we've all seen this before, that the religious don't understand the difference between teaching their children how to think versus what to think. There is a difference between education and indoctrination. Now, I can only speak for myself, obviously, but we taught our kids how to think. How do you evaluate claims? How do you look for evidence? How do you recognize logical fallacies? And how do you reject unjustifiable assertions? We never told them that they couldn't be Christians or any other religions if they wanted to. We just left it up to them to determine which ideas were best supported and which ones were complete bunk. Luckily, they came to the same conclusions that we had, that Christianity and all other religions, granted, were complete bullshit. We didn't make that choice for them, and it sure didn't take them until they were 18 to figure it out. They were telling kids in their 3rd and 4th grade classes that gods were nonsense. Granted, they were only doing that in response to the ham-fisted, childish attempts at proselytizing that the other kids were doing, pushed by their stupid religious parents. We got called in for a parent-teacher conference once and told that our kids were making the other kids cry and their parents were complaining. And we said, Good. Maybe you ought to be doing a better job producing critical thinkers, and that was the last time we ever heard about it. Because if you don't want rational responses, don't spout stupid things. It's really not that hard.
But either way, I mean, atheism is quite pervasive in this world today. We do have a couple episodes addressing atheism here. Certainly, this channel is more toward Catholics defending the faith against Protestants. But atheism, as we mentioned in the episode, how Protestants and Catholics have a common foe. We need to stop focusing on nitpicking each other. And I would say that, in all charity, it's mostly the Protestants trying to proselytize Catholics.
See what I mean? This really isn't about us. It's about us making them look bad, which, frankly, isn't that hard, is it? It's why Catholicism is dying out so quickly. Between 1974 and 2017, those who strongly identify as Catholic have declined from 46% of the population down to 27%, and Sunday Mass attendance has fallen from 50% of Catholics all the way down to less than 25%. That's why they're terrified. In fact, the decline among Catholics is far steeper than that among Protestants. Catholics have lost 18 percentage points in the same time the Protestants have lost 9. They've got a lot to be worried about. Regardless, we're here for those 2 questions, not to watch him try to blame others for his troubles. So let's skip forward until we get to something remotely interesting. If you care about his Catholic whining, the link to the original video is down in the description, and go ahead and watch, but that's completely on you.
I think atheism in life, lots of Catholics, the studies are pretty clear, it's much 12%, 6% of all Catholic children lose their faith within 10 years of graduation from school, and 12% they go to Catholic school. So really, all the Catholics and who you relate to, having kids that you at least not Catholic faith, and then college, and like atheists, because those professors were related by you, and also this is why kids to get this is too much. This is what I was talking about. As it says in Ecclesiastes 1, there's nothing new under the sun. Right? It's nothing new to have opponents of Christianity, and really, if you look at the New Testament, this would be what we would call the Antichrist, or anyone whose spirit is against that of Jesus and his teaching and his visible church. But certainly, we've always had people who deny the existence of God throughout history.
Now, where have we ever heard that one before? My book says a thing, therefore we're right. Yeah, not so much. We see this coming from Christians all the time, and I'm sure that when they wrote Matthew 10:22 or Luke 21:17, they had the same thing in mind. We have to explain why people are going to think we're all a bunch of imbeciles in a way that doesn't cost us converts. Well, maybe you should try not being idiots in the first place. Did you ever think of that? It says similar things in the Quran that people will hate them because they're right. It also has verses that say Christians will complain that the Muslims stole their beliefs just because a book says a thing, but that doesn't actually get you anywhere, does it? It just makes you look really, really dumb.
That being said, every civilization of human history has believed in a higher power. Now, many of them don't believe in a personal God. Many of them don't believe in one God, like in Hinduism, for example. But this is what I would tell atheists. Many atheists believe that when they go to college or whatever, they read a book by Hitchens or something, like they've discovered the truth, right? And there's this sin of singularity, right? I've not been spiritually fed, or really I'm just looking for a justification to commit the works of the flesh and sin and just be debauched and all that.
In other words, they just want to sin. Yeah, that's still stupid no matter who comes up with it. It's a nonsensical claim from a nonsensical religion, nothing more. Without believing in a God of some kind, sin has absolutely no meaning. You can't sin without some kind of divine will to sin against, and atheists don't believe in the divine. This is not an argument against atheism. It's an argument in favor of the religious maintaining belief. And that's really why all of these questions for atheism videos go so wrong, because they are assuming a priori that their beliefs are true, and then they use that unjustified standard to measure everything else against. Well, of course we're right. No evidence to support it or anything. They're not trying to get to the actual truth. They just desperately want to reassure their followers, the ones who are paying their paycheck, that they were right all along. This just makes atheists roll their eyes, because it's every bit as stupid as it sounds.
But a lot of atheists don't have, of course, clearly they don't have that background with Christianity or Catholicism, Catholic Christianity. And so when they read this, they're like, I know, see, all my family are stupid sheeple. I know the truth.
Okay, I have to say this, and it's not just this guy, but seriously, YouTubers with beards? Keep your fucking hands off of it in the middle of a video. I know it's just a nervous tick, but when you're putting your hand in front of your mouth when you're talking, you just sound stupid. Knock it off. Otherwise, you just sound like this.
And what they really don't realize is that they're being duped. Atheism in today's modern form is really an extension of socialism. It's an extension of Marxist socialism played out in its most radical form with Leninism, and then with the cultural offshoots of Gramsci communism and the Frankfurt School, which later came to Columbia University. And they don't understand that.
First off, we are over halfway through this video, and he hasn't found a question to ask yet. Granted, a lot of these people don't understand what questions are. I'm starting to think that's another one of these cases, but knock it off. So, all right, let me go check. Nope. The title actually is 2 questions to ask atheists in your life. So where are these questions? Secondly, that's just stupid. This is somebody with an agenda who has no actual contact with reality outside of his tiny little head. This is where it's fun to be a conservative atheist. I'm about as far from being a socialist or a communist or any other ist you can come up with, because that makes these people look like complete morons. I mean, mostly because they are. Not all atheists are liberals. In fact, 20% of atheists are politically conservative, and that number is going up. It also works out beautifully when people assume that all conservatives are religious in some way. Nope. I think the religious are idiots, and I'm still a registered Republican. I'm not really happy with the Republicans at the moment, but it's still there. In fact, going to Pew Research, 35% of Republicans between the ages of 18 and 29 are atheists, and 42% between 30 and 49 are atheists. It's really sad how little these people actually know.
So what I would tell them is every civilization of human history has believed in religion, has believed in some relationship with God. A God, the first principle, the uncaused cause, or uncaused causes, if it's a polytheistic religion. Nobody believed that there was no sort of God.
Except for all the ones who did. We can track back thousands of years to well-known writers who didn't believe in God. The Greek Epicurus, Democritus, and Lucretius, for example, none of them believed in gods. In fact, Epicurus was the one who came up with the idea of materialism in the first place. The problem with this kind of thing throughout history was that it was often positively dangerous to admit that you didn't believe in the gods. When most people had imaginary friends and figured that a little religious mayhem was just fine and dandy, people who didn't take that crap seriously either had to keep it under wraps or risk winding up dead. This goes all the way back to ancient times. We can look at the Inquisitions, meant to root out atheism or blasphemy. Lots of dead people there based on religious zealotry, but it wasn't always death though. Percy Shelley was expelled from the University of Oxford, and he had his children taken away from him because he dared to publish a pamphlet called The Necessity of Atheism. It wasn't just the Jews that the Nazis were after. It was atheists too. Heinrich Himmler did not allow atheists into the SS, saying that their refusal to acknowledge higher powers would be a potential source of indiscipline. Now, that's probably a good thing, so you can't blame the Holocaust on us, but we don't even have to talk about modern Muslim countries because we know what a mess those are. Atheism has been present forever, and had it not been for the murderous rage of the religious, we'd probably already be in the majority. But, it's coming. You people are dying a very, very well-deserved death.
And that itself is proof of the existence of God, but that's something that needs to be put into historical context. We can talk about this in concept of marriage, the installation of marriage, or homosexual relations, and palliative love marriage. It is a cultural argument, it's not a singular cause of argument, but it's a to remember is that every civilization believes in God, not Look at some of these minds that basically they believe in God. Plato, he believed in God. But obviously a lot of works civilized thinking and kind of incorporating into Christian paradigm, Aristotle, they believe in God, minds, some singular belief, and there are other reasons of Christianity comes by synthesize a lot of reasons to Catholicism, so on. And then you look at all the people throughout 2,000 years of Christianity, they all believed in God. Everybody believes in God. So I think, when you strip it away, atheists, when you take it all away, what it is like the sin of Adam and Eve, like I would tell you the sins of fully aware Protestants, the sin of Catholics who support abortion or contraception. When you strip it all down, it's the sin of rebellion.
Sorry, he was just going on and on and on and on about all the people who believed in God. Cherry picking. It's not at all difficult to find atheists throughout history. It's the ones who haven't been murdered or otherwise penalized by the religious that are difficult to find. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, and that number rises all the time. He brought up Plato in that segment that we just skipped, but even Plato, writing in the 4th century BCE, said that contemporary non-believers were not the first to have had this view about the gods. This is just religious ignorance on display. Is anybody honestly surprised at that? And where are those questions anyway? This is the last quarter of the video. Is this just another case of religious false advertising, or does he just not know what a question is? I'm actually getting kind of tired of this, so we're just skipping to the questions, and if there aren't any by the end, we'll come back and laugh at his incompetence, which I figure is probably what we'll end up doing.
I know better than everybody else. I don't care what's revealed or people write. All consistently uniformly read that it is God/gods. We're not saying about personal. We're talking about more deistic than God, person that created everything. We're just not sure about. But no, it's just seeing the singularity. I know better. Instead of realizing I've been indoctrinated by Marxists.
Sorry, I just had to stop for this one because it's just so ludicrous. I mean, beyond the whole Marxist thing, because that's dumb, but he can't even understand that he's just describing himself.
Instead of realizing I've been indoctrinated.
Yes, you've been indoctrinated, although it wasn't by Marxists, it was by Catholics. You just think that you're right because you really want to be right, because you've grown up being told that you're right, because your parents and your priests and everybody around you thought that they were right too. Welcome to Religion 101. But because he can't understand that he's just describing his own failures, he just sits there unironically describing where he himself is going wrong and trying to project that on others. What an imbecile. Anyway, let's get back to looking for questions. I'm not holding my breath.
They want you to worship the state and its ideals instead of worshiping. So if you know any atheists, just bring up these simple points. Everybody believes in a God. And really push the point that atheism in its modern form is really a creation of Marxism.
Which is still not true. So no, he doesn't know what a question is because he's an imbecile. He made claims that are demonstrably false, repeatedly, because that's what he hopes will appeal to his admittedly religious audience. Because he's a moron. And getting back to what I was saying before about false advertising, his thumbnail picture has a pretty girl in it because I guess that was supposed to get more views than this stupid bald-headed bearded fuck would. Granted, lots of people do that, but if you go back and watch this video, which I don't recommend because it's painful, but he even admits that his points aren't even valid. They don't mean anything. The fact that there are lots and lots and lots of religious people, that doesn't prove that any gods exist. It only proves there's lots of dumb people out there. So why bring it up? Let's just let him finish up because I'm done. I'm just done. This is just stupid beyond belief. I'm just making you suffer with me.
And then, of course, there's books you can always give them, but just bring up those two salient points. Guys, post in the comments. I'd like to know if you have any atheists in your life. They tend to be insufferable and arrogant. And of course, we must treat them with respect and charity. And like with all things we talk about with Protestants, defend the faith and answer questions with a smile.
Talk about being insufferable and arrogant. What a fucking prick. This is another video that has very, very few views, and I'm really not that surprised. According to the 17% rule, which granted we haven't talked about for a while, which basically says that for your video to be successful, 17% of your subscribers ought to watch it. He ought to have somewhere north of 800 views on this video, and he's not remotely close. Now, I can't say that I'm surprised. He's not quite at Daniel King levels of fail, but yeah, he's pretty close to that. He's a deluded Catholic without a clue, and that's pretty much how they all work out, but most aren't quite as ridiculous as he is. I'm pretty confident that he's not going to be someone we'll revisit in the future because he's really an embarrassing dumbass. And this is why people like Father White and Robert Barron, they all fare so poorly. Because they're all pretty much doing the same thing. They're Catholics without a clue. Because I think most Catholics lack anything resembling a clue. And that's sad. So anyhow, what do you think of his two non-question questions? I know I fast-forwarded a lot through this video, but there just wasn't much of interest here. If I wasn't trying to show just how bad these people were, I probably wouldn't have bothered. This video never would have gone up, but this is a prime example of how dumb these people are. This is pretty standard for the Catholic apologist, and yeah, what a joke, right? They just don't care. And I don't think they're bright enough to figure out what they're doing wrong. So anyway, what do you think? Let me know in the comments, and let's just call it a day.